Welcome to Tina Tries. Have you ever wanted an Elvish blade to add to your home decor or your Lord of the Rings collection? Today, I'm going to show you how to print and paint Sting. You can make it Hobbit-sized or human-sized. And the best part, the blade glows blue when orcs are near. Next on Tina Tries. This Hobbit-sized blade is today's project. This file is by Marco at Mystery Makers and can be found on his Patreon page. This was printed on an H2C in black PLA and a gray PLA that glows blue in the dark. This took 7.5 hours to print and used 50 grams of filament. You'll also need a wooden skewer, some miter apple CA glue with the activator spray, and some acrylic paint. As usual, I'll link everything in the description below. Let's check out the build. Here are the printed pieces. The blade is split into 2 pieces in the file to accommodate printing on smaller printers, but since I was going to use my H series, I wanted to put it together in one shot. Here is how I combine the 2 pieces together.
When you open the file in Bamboo Studio, the pieces of the blade are placed vertically. The first step is to lay both pieces flat on the plate. I used the rotate button to turn them both 90 degrees. The pointed end of the blade was slightly tilted to the left, so I used the rotate button again to correct that. Next, I highlighted both pieces of the blade and clicked on the Assemble button. This is where I chose the areas to be fused together. For face 1, I chose the middle hole on the bottom half of the blade. Then on the top half of the blade, I highlighted the same hole on that piece for face 2. Then I clicked on Center Coincidence. It was still not quite perfectly aligned, so I manually moved it into better alignment to make sure the pieces matched up as perfectly as I could get them. Once I was happy with the alignment, I highlighted both pieces again and clicked on Mesh Boolean. Make sure that both pieces are highlighted and Union right here is also highlighted, and then click Execute. This merges the 2 pieces together into a single blade. I placed mine vertically on the plate for printing to get the best quality print that I could. Then it was time for printing. The first step for making Sting is that we cannot have the handle being black. So I am going to paint this to make it look like it should. First, I am going to sand down my little hilt here on the top just to make it a bit smoother, and also try to get rid of the layer lines on the top of the end of Sting. I am going to use some 220 grit sandpaper and try and smooth this out. Then I'm going to go in with some 400 grit sandpaper just to make it really smooth, and then we will start painting. Now I'm going to go in with my 400 grit sandpaper and smooth it out even more. All right, now I'm going to get a wet paper towel and I'm going to brush all of the dust off of these pieces. That way, when I go to paint it, I don't need to worry about the paint bubbling or not sticking to any of the dust from sanding. Let's clear the paper out of here. And let's brush off our pieces, make sure we get the dust off of here before we start painting. So I'm going to start off by painting Sting's handle here. I'm going to do a very dark brown, and then once that's dry, I'm going to go back in and do all of these leaf details in a very shiny silver paint. The hilt and the cap on the end are going to be done in the shiny silver as well, and then we should be able to glue everything together once it is dry. So I'm going to start off with the dark brown on the handle here, and I think I'm just going to use a flat brush for this. I'm going to paint the whole thing brown, and then I can go over the detail work with the silver afterward. So I'm painting this before I glue everything together. That way I don't get any paint on my blade. Second coat, I found this really, really cool filament
that is gray and it actually glows blue in the dark, just like Sting did in the movie.
And I don't want to get paint on it.
There we have our second coat of paint. That looks pretty good and even. So I am gonna let that dry and then I will come back and do all of the silver paint. All right, so the brown on the handle is dry and now I am gonna go in and do the silver on all of the little leaf details here. And I'm also going to paint the pommel, I think it's called the pommel, and the hilt of the sword in silver. So this is plate mail metal, which is a very nice shiny silver by Warhammer Paints. I'm gonna start with the two parts that I am just gonna paint solid silver, and then I will do all of the detail work on the handle. This will take a couple of coats to get this completely covered. That is okay. So there's one coat, and I'm gonna do the second coat on these solid silver pieces. So our second coat on the main pieces that are only going to get silver is done. And while that is drying, I'm gonna start doing the detail work on the actual handle of Sting. For this one, I'm gonna use a relatively fine detail brush. I wanna make sure that I keep the silver paint only on the detailed parts and not on the brown part. A steady hand and a little patience should do the trick.
Eight hours later.
Well, that was a long and tedious process. However, that came out pretty well. These are still pretty tacky, so I am going to let them dry and then we will come back and we will glue everything together. All right, so our paint is dry and we are ready for assembly. This should be really, really, really easy. So for some added stability, I'm gonna use just a little wooden skewer that we're going to insert into the middle here. So there's a channel that goes down into the blade. It also goes all the way through our handle and into the pommel as well. So that should hopefully give it a little more structural stability. We will see. So I'm just gonna put the skewer into the middle here. So for this one, I am going to use miter apple with the activator spray. This is painted, so I'm not as worried about it leaving streaks. So first we are going to put the hilt on here, and we want to leave the middle part without glue until we put the handle on. So I am only going to put glue on these outer edges here. Then we are going to slide our hilt on, make sure it is pressed down all the way. And then I'm gonna spray the activator spray on the inside of the hilt here, just because I don't want it to leak out onto my blade that's not painted. So there's our hilt. So now I'm going to put miter apple just in the little channel here. Then we're gonna slide the handle on and lock it in place with the activator spray. Make sure it is in all the way and that it is straight before we spray the activator spray. And there we have our handle. Now I need to see how much of this I need to cut off. So it looks like I need to clip this. I'm gonna start a little bit at a time. I do want it to reach the top of the hole on the pommel here. That way it is structurally stable. So I'm just gonna cut it a little bit at a time and keep testing until it fits on there tightly. So for this one, I'm gonna put the glue on the inside of the pommel and then put that on and spray it. I'm not gonna put too much because I don't want it to leak out onto the handle. So just a little layer of the super glue should do it. Make sure that it is on straight and then spray. And there we have our completed sting. Super easy, and it's very stable. Here is Sting. It turned out really well, and it actually glows blue in the dark. How cool is this? Here are my rankings for this project. Ease of printing. This one gets a 9. It was a little bit more work for me because I decided to print the blade in one piece, which I show you how. But if you have a smaller print bed, this file is perfect as is. I did mess with the orientation for the hilt and the pommel in order to get them to print at the highest quality that I could. I added brims to the handle and the sword because I decided to print those vertically and I did not want my H2 knocking them over. I also ended up encasing the hilt and the pommel in normal supports. If you want to scale this up to human size, here are the dimensions that you'll want to use. Marco does also provide split versions of the hilt and the pommel in case you want to print them in half flat on the print bed and glue them together. I used the single piece files because I didn't want to deal with the seams on the sides. If you want to use the glow-in-the-dark filament like I did, there are a couple of caveats to using it. You definitely want to make sure that you dry it prior to printing to ensure that it prints with high quality. Also be mindful that it is abrasive and it will tear up your lines with prolonged use, so use with caution. Ease of assembly. This one gets a 10. The assembly was really easy and only required a little bit of super glue. I'm pretty sure it took me less than 5 minutes to put it all together. I did add the wooden skewer in the middle to give it a little more stability in case one of my kids decides to swing it around. But that step is completely optional. Painting it was a lot of fun, even though all of the scroll work on the handle was incredibly tedious. It did take quite a while to complete. But I love how it turned out. And the best part is, it actually glows. That's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any new episodes. Let me know if you've tried printing with glow-in-the-dark filament in the comment section below, and I will see you on the next one.